how has social media and in the internet changed how we view success in helping
Fair,
people for so many?
fair. That's such a good question. I think the numbers that we're dealing with today are just outrageous. I think even having like 1,000 people watch a video is insane.
I know.
Like 1,000 people. So imagine like a room or a stadium of 1,000 people. Like, can you imagine having like a PowerPoint presentation of 1,000 people? That's so nerve-wracking. And then imagine 10,000 or like a million or people who have like tens of millions of listeners or views. That's such an insane amount of people.
Hmm.
And I think inevitably with social media, we've just become blinded to those numbers. Um, and like you said, I think we're just so connected that we feel like maybe there's something to it where it's like in the past, maybe we were more concerned about our close community. Like I want to do something good for my family or this village or something. But now I think because we know that we're so connected, maybe we feel some sort of a responsibility to the rest of the world because we are more aware of what is going on in the rest of the world. You know, back in, I don't know how many years ago, if you lived in Sweden like I live in, you probably, like, you didn't see live footage of a war or something going on in a different part of the world. It was more isolated, more of an isolating experience. But now it's all up in our faces all the time. And because we know that we can make more of an impact today than we could however many years ago, I think with that comes maybe a desire to have an impact that is maybe bigger than your family or your like close community. But also I think some people still very highly just value being like a good father, a good mother, a good sibling. And I think ultimately that is what, like, we shouldn't forget that because we get so caught up in like, oh, but I want to influence the world. I think in every circumstance, we should really start super small and be like, am I being a good friend?
Hmm.
Like, am I a good sister right now? Like, I'm online and I'm talking about all these things and getting complimented, but like, am I being a good sister? You know, I think scaling back sometimes and kind of getting back to reality and the things that are important, which to me is like my close circle. Like they're like for most people, my number one. And so, yeah, as much as I too sometimes think, hey, it would be cool if I, like someone from across the world, was positively influenced by something. And it is really cool. But not forgetting that like you're also living your day-to-day life in your little bubble in your town, wherever you're living. And so what kind of friend are you and what kind of partner, sister, brother, son, daughter, parent? Like we shouldn't forget that.
Were there any moments in particular that you had to check yourself where the person you were presenting yourself to be online was different enough where you noticed it from the person you were acting as in real life?
I think moment I had one moment where my mom was helping me record something. Um, and then I checked the footage back and like, I don't know what it was. Like she hadn't pressed play or it was like something was off with the camera settings. Like she doesn't work with cameras. Like I'm just handing it to her and she's helping me be like a good mother and a good person, right? And so it wasn't recorded the way that I wanted it to be recorded. And then I got upset
Hmm.
at her. And immediately I felt so bad about myself because I think I was so caught up in like getting this footage right to then go live with it, to then have like all these people watch it. But like the person in front of me who was helping me was getting an attitude from me because she wasn't getting it right. So I think that's one of those moments that I was like, oh, like that's not good. Like, come on, like get back to reality. She's helping you here and she is here, physically here. Like, be nice. Yeah, I think that was one of those. moments where I was like, ooh, that was not nice of me.
Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah.
I think it's hard, you know.
Sorry, well,
Well, it's
that's just
hard to perfectly present yourself as the same exact person as your, in a sense, your ideal would act in a video. And when, particularly when you're giving advice, or when you're presenting an image of yourself of how you would like the world to act more, it's hard for that to be in alignment 1000% of the time. And I think the consumer might not realize that. And that, I think, is also another thing that's helped me with imposter syndrome or insecurity, is that I can present myself or present the ideal of what I'd like and not live up to it every single moment, and be okay with that, and try to work towards getting a closer alignment of my words and my actions every day, but knowing that I'm not going to be perfect.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And like with social media, and like you're on social media, you're doing this podcast, and I'm on social media, and I think when you're doing it enough, like for an extended period of time, you learn just how easy it is to like really present yourself and your life any way that you can. It's actually quite frightening. Like it's happened that maybe like I'll post something, and like maybe I'll post a photo that was taken when I was like super happy and whatever, but the day I'm posting it, I'm not happy. Like I'm sad over something, I'm disappointed, whatever, but I'm posting it, and in that moment I'm realizing, like, obviously I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to be like, hey, I was happy in this photo, but right now I'm sad. Like, I don't have to say that, but knowing that, wow, like I can actually post anything, and anyone who is on social media can post anything, act like anything, look like anything. Like there's so many factors. It's really scary. And I think if you're not on social media, like it's so important to be aware of that. Like us who are, like know that we can present ourselves really any way that we want. I think it's just so scary to think that some people aren't fully aware of that.
And I think that's why people are drawn to your content, for the authenticity of it, of the thoughtfulness of, look, I can do this at this time, and I'm telling you that I can feel sad and be posting a happy photo. But a lot of people are not as aware of themselves, and or won't want to tell you that. And so your willingness to be truthful about your experience is, from my perspective, one of your advantages and one of your skills.
I think it's so important because I've also been on the other side where, you know, when I was not on social media and I didn't know necessarily how easy it was to like present yourself a certain way or say something a certain way, and now that I am aware, because I know that back in the day, like it could impact me negatively too, or I could be like, these people are always happy, or they're always doing this and they're always looking amazing. But now when I'm doing this myself, like I know if we just take looks, for example, I know that the lighting, like moving like half an inch can completely change the way you look, like with light. Like that's just like a small thing. That's why when you're traveling to a tropical place, there's amazing lighting. Like you're going to look way better than you are going to look in the middle of winter in Sweden. And that's just a fact. So these small things that I think everyone, especially who is not on social media, should really know, that it's very easy to like present life and yourself really any way that you want today. Let's not even get into like all the filters, and like that's just a whole topic in itself.
How has becoming more known to more people impacted your own psychology and your own day-to-day experience?
I think mostly just, it's easy to say that it hasn't impacted me all that much, but I don't know. I don't know what I would be like and what my life would have been like had I not started my channel 3-4 years ago. I don't know if would I have been a better person, or would I have been not as good of a person? Would I have been less insightful, more insightful, happier, sadder? I don't know. I can sit here today and be like, it's mostly had a good impact because I'm kind of forced in a way to meet my thoughts a bit deeper when I'm like writing for my videos and I'm coming up with ideas. And I believe that's made me more insightful, and also insightful in a different way, I think. And like I mentioned earlier, like learning so much from the community and all of that. But I don't know, maybe my life would have been way better had I not. Like it's so hard to even think of like, what would my life have looked like? Or what would I have been like had this thing not happened? Had I not done this thing? I think it's good in the way that I think I'm more self-aware, but it's also not good in a way, because sometimes I don't really want to like dive deep into my thoughts. I don't really want to reflect too much on something that happened, but I also want, let's say, the video and the topic to be as, as meaningful as possible. And so, yeah, I know it's like good and it's not very good. And also staring at yourself a lot, I think, with social media in general, is still quite strange. And yeah, being on camera, like I don't always feel like being on camera. Yeah, it's very weird, like seeing yourself that much, whether that's like on a YouTube video or but mostly on YouTube video. I think it's very natural for human beings to be like looking at yourself and, oh, that's a flaw, or do I look like that, or like, yeah.
We've probably both collectively looked at ourselves more than most humans had in all of human history, and
yeah,
that's a crazy thing to consider or to know, and how that impacts you, and how you must naturally think of yourself as the center of a world, whereas if your entire life was you had never seen a mirror, your whole life would be the outer world. And there's benefits and drawbacks to that as well. But yeah. I appreciate the full picture you paint of what seemingly people think of as just a positive experience.